thick lime putty, a bit of drain cleaner, mix, spread over the old paint, and it all scrapes right off in 12 hours. I find this far more efficient than commercial strippers and heat guns, but I'm going to show you how to make this for practically nothing. I'll admit that I'm not quite as safe as I should be sometimes, and I pay. So at a minimum, make sure you use rubber gloves and goggles. This recipe comes from the 1870s and calls for pearl ash, but I found that lye works just as well. Lye can be found in many drain cleaners, but I prefer to make my own using hardwood ashes. I simply slide one plastic bucket into another and screw them together. To leave an empty space between the bottoms of the two buckets, I simply leave an inch or two of water in the bottom bucket to keep them apart, and then drain off the water. I drill several holes into the bottom of the top bucket and prepare my ashes. I run the ash through a window screen to remove any bits of charcoal and unburnt wood. To the fine ash, I add hydrated lime powder at a mix of about 20 ashes to 1 lime. I then mix it thoroughly. In the bottom of the bucket, I put down a layer of straw, then about 6 or 8 inches of ashes, another layer of straw, and another layer of ashes. To give myself a stronger lye, I attach another bucket with the bottom removed and continue with more layers of ashes and straw. I then pour in about 3 or 4 gallons of fresh rainwater. About 4 hours later, I remove the screw in the bottom and begin to drain off the liquid that filtered through the ashes. And this is potassium hydroxide, also known as lye. It is very caustic, so don't expose bare skin to it. I filter the liquid again to take out anything that may have slipped through the straw and store it in glass bottles. If I wanted this for soap, I'd take a fresh egg and test its strength by seeing how high in the lye it floats. For a paint stripper though, this really isn't necessary. I label the bottle to make sure I don't mistake it for cider and take a big old swig. On a side note, I don't like storing gallons and gallons of lye. Instead, I like to boil it down into a salt. I simply pour the lye into a metal pan over low heat and let the water evaporate. If it's done carefully, you should end up with a material that looks like a brown sugar. This can be converted into pearl ash, but that's a more involved process. Masonry lime is becoming more expensive and more difficult to find. However, if you do find some, you simply fill a container halfway with water, dump the hydrated lime on top, and you let it settle.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer schickt Sie?
If you can't find or don't want to buy masonry lime, there is an easy solution. You can make your own. Simply get a good fire going, throw on enough heavy logs that will burn all night, and dump on a bucket of seashells or limestone. The next morning you should have quicklime that you can slake into a hydrated lime. Let this soak in water for a couple of weeks until you have a lime putty that's about as thick as a cream cheese. Making the actual paint stripper is very easy. You can make as much of it as you like. Take any amount of lime putty and put it into a mixing pan. Add the lye. Mix it up until you have a thick cream. Add more lye or lime as needed. Now, simply apply it to the paint to be removed. After a couple of hours, the paint will start to come off with a little effort. If you let it set for 12 hours, the results are simply amazing. This paint stripper has some brown spots developing, so that kind of tells me that this stripper is doing its job. The paint slides off with almost no effort at all, and a putty knife is all you need. If your mix is weak, it'll only remove a layer or two of paint, and a second coat may be necessary. Before you try this on a grand scale, I encourage you to test out your mix on a small scale first. It did take me a little bit of time to figure out what exactly worked best for me. When it's all removed, you can do whatever necessary to prepare the woodwork for new paint or stain or whatever. I do go over the surface with a damp rag to make sure every bit of the paint stripper is removed. The book that provided this information is available on Google Books and at archive.org. If you'd like to purchase a hard copy of this very useful book, I have an affiliates link in the description. However, definitely check out the free version first. To learn more about making your own masonry lime at home, I've covered that in a previous presentation.